happy Tuesday 10 at 10. I am your host, Richard Charpentier from Baking Innovation. And every day, every week, we answer questions for you, the bakers, answered by a baker. I'm a certified master baker, 34 years of experience in the industry. So let's get started with your first question. So, first question, somebody was asking, why after a 3 hour sponge, I'm the bun, why the bubble? So it's not really, basically the question is after why does my bun become bubbly on the crust? And the reason why, it's probably you have a poor quality flour. Based on where you're located, I would recommend you look at the C of A, to see where your flour, to see if you can get any analytical data, mixograph, farinograph, understand what type of flour you have. Do you need to add dough conditioners? Do you need to add gluten? Do you need to, and what's the temperature of your sponge, and what temperature do you keep the sponge into, and how much yeast are you using? So all of those are factors that are very important for the quality and the consistency of your products. So moving on to the next question, we have somebody asking, they're having issues with large hair pocket under the skin of my donuts collapsing in. Any advice of to why this might be happening? So it could be many things. Is your formulation well balanced, and why you have a skin on the top? How are you shaping? Also, I've seen that when people, depending on your operation, but if it's semi-manual operation where you're going through a dough sheeter and back and forth, you have people putting a lot of AV water and taking folding pieces. So by creating that, you're creating layers underneath that could create potential issues. And what is the formulation? Do you have something that shouldn't be? You have too much of one thing. Are you proofing? Your proofing temperature, is this proof perfectly? And it's again going back to the details and learning how to use the principle of baking in your operation day in and day out. So I would, just look at everything, because once you apply the principles of baking and just follow through and train the employees to do so, then it should be easier. Next question. It's a question where which ingredients can delay starch retrogradation? So again, starch retrogradation, what affects stalling? Stallings can be affected by how you ferment your dough. Longer fermentation allows for the ingredients to properly hydrate. So that's why, and through enzymatic reaction, the yeast is releasing enzyme, breaking down the more, the starches into smaller molecules with the amylases, and then also starch can be delayed. The starch retrogradation can be delayed through softening agents, through colloids. Some people use colloids, some people will use sugar, will delay starch retrogradation. We have a lot of tools available to the bakeries to delay, starch stalling. An old technique, what people used to do, which is, they would use potato. They would boil potato and use the potato, mashed potato, and potato is nothing but a starch. So the starch will allow for the delay of the starch retrogradation. But anything, if you were to take a solution of starch and water and bake it, it's easy. It's just one ingredient. But as you bring other ingredients, they will compete for the water in your product. And then if you're putting gluten into it, and if you're putting sugar, and if you're putting salt, and you're putting milk, and you're putting eggs, and all of those ingredients will compete. So it's how, I guess, and also the type of starch you're using. Because today, your potato versus a rye versus a rice are very different in terms of swelling and holding water holding capacity. But great question. And now for another question on vitamin C. hello, I'm new to the bread industry and I want to know the function of vitamin C and how to apply it to the dough in quantity to use for his recipe. And basically saying that the issue is the quality, bread is bubbling too much, and they want to find a solution. So again, it's a great question. You're basically saying I have issues with the quality of my bread, and customers try it, but then they walk away thinking I don't like your bread, and then you're saying, all right, I'm going to put vitamin C. Vitamin C is a reducing agent, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, it's the same thing. And it's used in the presence of oxygen, which it is in bakeries, becomes an oxidizing agent. So it gives you strength. On average, people would use on baker's percent for regular bread, just to give the strength, about 60 parts per million, 60 ppm, parts per million. And so it's a very small amount. And whole wheat bread and things that that is a little more complex, when you need a little more lift, you have 120 ppm doubling to maybe 180 ppm. So you're going higher amount. But again, it's for you to try, and then your line, because if you have a manual bakery, I would not even use ascorbic acid. I would rely on time and temperature from naturally fermenting, using the right yeast. But if your dough is bubbling too fast, and if your dough is showing other issues of processing issues and it's not handling well, go back to take a time out. Don't add ingredients to fix the problem. Understand where the problem comes from, and then add other ingredients that are necessary. And I've seen that being a recurring mistakes in a lot of bakeries, that you see an issue, you don't try to understand the issue, but you go add other ingredients thinking you're solving the issue. And then later on, you have another issue, and then you're adding on top of it and on top of it. And I'm seeing a lot of formulas with a lot of unnecessary ingredients. And remember, bread is a simple, sound product, and ingredients are needed for shelf life, for throughput, for as you're scaling it up. But if you have issues, it's always good to understand why are the issues. If you're bubbling too much, do you have too much yeast? You have too much hydration? What's the stability of your flour? Is the flour too much starch damage? The temperature of your dough too hot, etc. There's so many things that come in my mind to how to fix it without having to add ascorbic acid. But again, if you prefer adding ascorbic acid and you think ascorbic will be good for your process, I would start with a small level, 60, maybe 40 ppm. Start low and see if there's a difference. And again, good luck with it. And now for our last question. Somebody's working on a muffin formulation, and they say they're using xanthan gum, and as I'm reading it through, they're basically talking about the flavor. They said, one thing I cannot figure out with my muffin from the grocery store, muffins that they have a distinct flavor. Well, now the question is whether or not it's necessary to use flavors and products, and because once you make, let's say in the case of a muffin, you're using milk and you're using eggs and other minor ingredients, and whether or not it is powdered or not, it will impact a flavor for your product. And if you're putting chocolate chip, etc. One thing that makes a difference when commercial products, let's say we'll call a Twinkie, right? So they have a distinct flavor for the Twinkie. Let's say Coca-Cola, they have their own secret recipe, it's secret flavor. So it's very important to think about it as you expand your shelf life. And the flavor is also the signature of the baker. What flavor do you want people to know when they bite into your product? Do you want it to be generic? Most bakeries will use a butter, vanilla type of flavor. And then you want to look at the stability of the flavor over time. And when I've worked for long shelf life for the military, when you get 3 year shelf life, you have to pick specific flavor that will last longer, because the experience of a bakery, especially if you package your muffin, the experience for the consumer, the end consumer, is once you open the package, you want to have a fresh flavor smell. You don't want to be like, what does that smell? What is it? And I've had the experience where you don't know what flavor it is, and you smell, and it's non-descriptive, and there's no aroma, it's just plain. So flavor has to have aromatic, meaning what you smell, and once you bite, it has to come through natural. The flavor has to release naturally, and also have a clean flavor. You don't want the artificial, taste like a cough syrup later on. But good luck searching flavors, and based on where you're located, again, I can recommend, there's plenty of great flavor companies that will be glad to help you on your search for the best flavor. All right, my friends. So thank you again for listening to Tuesday 10 at 10, sending your question. And I'm your host, Richard Charpentier, and I wish you all a happy Tuesday and a happy baking. Take care.